friendly neighborhood Jerry Rasco here with you again, and it's time for another amazing Spider-Man art retrospective video. Today is another first, really, as what we've looked at in this series of Amazing Spider-Man, going back to the very beginning. If you're new to the channel or you're new to this playlist, every Monday I put out a video talking about the art of the Amazing Spider-Man series, going all the way back to Amazing Fantasy number 15, the first appearance of Spider-Man. Today we're going to be looking at Amazing Spider-Man number 12. So we're a year into the book. The artist Steve Ditko and our writer, of course, the ever famous Stan Lee, are really getting into a groove, and we're starting to see some tropes of things that become canon or standard for Peter Parker and Spider-Man and the comics moving forward. We're also seeing some of the formatting. So in the very beginning, we saw a lot of introductions. Every issue was sort of a new villain, right? Because he didn't have a rogues gallery of villains to dip into. Well, we've started to see some returns. So we've seen the Vulture come back. We've seen Dr. Octopus come back. And in this case, we actually see something that's we haven't really seen too much of yet, which is the continuation of a story that kind of ended last month with a bit of a cliffhanger and now into the following month. So if you saw the let's go right over to the book and we'll start talking about it. So we have here the Amazing Spider-Man number 12. If you saw the previous video with number 11, Spider-Man fights Dr. Octopus and they crash. They're in a boat and they crash, and Spidey dives in the water and he escapes. And it seems like Dr. Octopus has disappeared. Nobody can find him. However, this continues right after that, and we find out what's going on. So instead of moving to another villain, either a returning villain or a new villain, and then 2-3 issues later, Dr. Octopus comes back, this really does continue that story right away. So that's something new that we haven't really seen as far as storytelling before. The cover is interesting. I like the perspective. So you have Dr. Octopus in the background holding Spidey / Peter Parker upside down as he's coming towards all the onlookers, pulling his mask off. So is this going to happen? Is this a real scene from the book? Will Spider-Man actually unmask, or will Dr. Octopus actually unmask Spider-Man in front of everybody? We will find out. I like, again, because Dr. Octopus's arms have that ability to extend into the horizontal page or into the horizontal frame. It's nice to see them in perspective and really using the space, which is great. My only complaint is I think that both Dr. Octopus, Peter, and these figures could be bigger. You have a lot of copy or type on the page. This could still work. This big black blob that talks about Dr. Octopus, that can be shortened down a little bit or moved up a little bit. But I'd like to see a more menacing Dr. Octopus. Somebody bigger, maybe have him closer to Peter where he's sort of hovering over him. You could also move some of these figures down. We don't need quite as much of J. Jonah Jameson or Betty Brant's figure or this cop's body. We could make them larger faces in the foreground and make the figures bigger. Just my own personal nitpick. But again, I've talked about this. If you watched my earlier videos, one of the things I do like is the use of the different colors. So Dr. Octopus is featured primarily in green tones. And again, I say this all the time, every video. This is a PDF scanned copy of this original comic book. So the colors and things are going to be a little off just because of the age of the paper, the ink, etc. Would it have been more vibrant when it originally came out? Probably. The red has held up very well, but I think you could see where some of the stuff like the blue and Spidey's costume is sort of faded to almost black. Same thing with Dr. Octopus. So I believe this would have been more vibrant green. You have red and blue for Spidey, blue for the police, brown on Jonah, kind of a reddish brown on Betty. And so what do you use? You use a color that isn't any of those. So we don't use a bluish background. We don't use a greenish background. We use a yellow background to make everything pop and really make it bright and vibrant and have this stand out on the page, on the newsstands. So I really like that part of it. I just wish the figures were a little bit bigger. We go to page 1, and of course, as we always see, there's a sort of a montage image on page 1, and this is a true montage. I mean, we have, you know, a depressed Peter slash Spider-Man, and then kind of a little glimpse of everything that's in the book. There's Dr. Octopus, there's crazy animals, there's all of his supporting cast, and of course J. Jonah Jameson going after Spider-Man. It's not the greatest splash page. It doesn't make me super excited about the book, not the way at least the action on the cover did. And you could do some other things. Again, Spidey could be bigger figure here. Little thing I thought, I'd like to see darts coming out of the picture of Spider-Man's head by J. Jonah Jameson. I think that would be really funny. Likewise, you could do something more dynamic with the heads. You could put them over closer together. You could overlap them a little bit. There's a lot that could be done to make this more exciting, but it works for what it is. Personally, I've said this many times, I don't understand the need to take what is kind of laid out sort of on the cover and then everything that's in the book and lay it out in this splash page when you could just go into the story. We could start with a splash that's part of the story of Spider-Man swinging or whatever he's doing. So, you know, even this, like, so we go to page 2, which is our first page of story, and they're recapping from the previous issue that Dr. Octopus has escaped. You've created a facsimile or a fake newspaper of the Daily Bugle. Why not put that here on the montage page or the splash page? Put a giant paper laid out with photographs, which of course are just drawings of Spider-Man fighting Dr. Octopus, and the headline, Dr. Octopus escapes from Spider-Man. Then you come over here and now you start getting into the story of what happened. So again, just my opinion, and that's the difference probably in 40, 50 years of, 60 years of comic book storytelling, right? We do things a little bit differently. I do like the wall crawling here. I've talked about this before where we've done some stuff and he's used similar, Steve Ditko has used similar poses where Spidey, when he crawls, the way Steve Ditko draws him, he doesn't stick his whole hand and foot to the building. It's just his fingertips and his toe tips, which really helps to emphasize, I think, both that he's a powerful figure. He can hold himself up just by the ends of his digits, and kind of emphasizes how powerful his sticking power is. So I think that is pretty cool. I do also like this framework of having people in the background doing things and Spidey in the foreground up close looking in through the window. I think that's a really nice use of the space. You could just have this scene that's inside just be inside. We don't need the Spider-Man piece of it, but it's a nice addition. On the next page, we have this montage. So Dr. Octopus has escaped, and now he's on a crime spree across the country. And we've seen montages of crime stuff. If you go back again to one of my earlier videos where Spidey is fighting a group called the Big Man and the Enforcers, they have a similar crime spree montage while he's out of the picture. Spidey's out of the picture, and it's done better than this. This one is small. The figure work is very, very small, and the action isn't super dynamic. It's not, again, that other montage, if you go back and look, is considerably, I think, is executed considerably better than this one. This does the job to tell the story, but I like the other one much, much better. And then down here we go. Peter is getting sick, and this is another trope that we have of, what happens. So I've talked about this a little bit as well. The hero has a journey, and part of the hero's journey is overcoming challenges. So when you're Spider-Man and you can lift a car over your head, you can swing across buildings, you can stick to walls, you have a spider sense that warns you of danger, you have this webbing that can apparently do anything you want it to do. How do you give him a challenge? Even Dr. Octopus, because he has these four mechanical arms, is a challenge, but we need to make it even more of a challenge. So what we're going to do is because I think in the previous issues, Spidey got knocked into the Hudson River and got soaking wet. It looks like he's caught a cold, or that he's getting that way. So that will impact the story. So let's keep going here. Your usual stuff. He's dealing again with the kids at school and has to try to throw him off the scent that he can't be a Spider-Man supporter, right? Because somebody might think, might put two and two together. So that's the whole thing. Now, Dr. Octopus has made a connection between Betty Brant and Spider-Man from the previous issue, and so he breaks into the Daily Bugle here to kidnap Betty. This I really like, and I'm going to zoom in because it's a small panel. And again, I wish this was bigger. Again, in modern comics, I think we probably would have chopped down some of these other panels to make room to make this one way bigger. This is the page. Like, this is the most important thing on the whole page is Dr. Octopus coming through that window. So I really like the way the legs are coming in through that window. It overlaps everything, and then you have the figures in the room overlapping the legs, which gives us that nice sense of depth. He is also in front of, his physical arms and leg are in front of the window frame as well, so he's come in through it, which is really nice. And then this is real subtle, so you could, and you shouldn't. You should, as an artist, this is one of the rules. You would never put your character's feet on the bottom of the panel itself. It's just something where it how do I put it? It takes away from giving them a real sense of weight and space. It then makes it look like they're drawn on a line. And so it's an awkward thing. So just this little bit of black floor puts our view lower, right? So if you could see, if you're that low where you can see the edge of the floor and the bottom of your vision and then their feet, that puts you very, very low. Not quite what I'd call a true worm's eye view, because we're not really looking up as much as you would, but it's in that direction. And what that does is it makes us look up. It gives the figures here in the foreground nice movement, but it really makes Dr. Octopus more menacing because he's up above us as a viewer. Your line of sight for your eyes, your horizon, is essentially that floor line. So that's where a true worm's eye view really emphasizes the person up above, which is a very menacing position, a position of power. So from the psychology of storytelling, this is really nice to have your bad guy break in and go with a lower camera view for it. So that panel is extremely effective and really, really nice. And then honestly, we come to the next page, and this panel of Betty is not. You look at like Jonah, J. Jonah Jameson in some of these, Peter in these. They are so loose and fluid and moving. Their limbs are all moving in different directions. Their torsos are bent. And this is so stiff. This looks like those arms and that back is perfectly stiff, and the head. This could be a Barbie doll, other than the knee being bent. Like, it is so stiff. So not the best piece there. And I know that Steve Ditko can do and has done so much better. So just a miss on that one. So we keep going, and again, nothing out of the ordinary as far as the art goes here. Story wise, Peter's powers are starting to fade a little bit as the illness that he has is accelerating. So everybody is trying to everybody's trying to find Betty. He's obviously using her as bait. So Peter's going to go. J. Jonah Jameson's going to go there. They're going to call the cops. Everybody's going to show up at this big conflict. By the time Peter gets to this amusement park, he is really sick. His spider sense does work, so he's able to locate Doc Ock. This horizontal panel is really nice. That is a very nice way to show this punch. I really love the movement and the flailing, not flailing, but the curves of those arms. That punch, feels like it's there. Now he's lost his strength, so he's not. So that's why there isn't as big a reaction from Dr. Octopus from a story perspective. But just as a drawing of a hero punching a villain, this is great. This is good. The action of both arms, the leg up, and again, all the work of the Dr. Octopus mechanical arms is excellent. So I really, really like that. On the next one, we also have some big horizontal panels, which I like a lot. You'll know, again, if you've seen any of my videos, I rave whenever we get out of this grid format and into some different panel structure. Is really, really nice. This one doesn't work as well as this one. And this panel is basically the cover, right? So you've got your onlookers, you've got Doc Ock, he's got Peter bent over upside down, and he's grabbing the mask to unmask him. This is not as powerful an image as the cover. So real quick, let's go back and just look at the cover. So here's Doc Ock. Here is Peter and the shocked faces. And then here's basically the same thing. And this feels very static. And the reason is because of the profile shot. Everything is at its side. Now, Doc Ock is turned so we can see across his shoulders, across his hips. But he's not... the face is profile. Spider-Man is in profile. It's never as interesting. It's very flat. It's very hard to draw a profile side shot of any kind of character, whether it's their face, their body, etc., and make it not feel flat like a drawing. That's the challenge. So this, to me, feels static and flat, whereas this has much more motion. You feel him hanging from the arms. You feel him being, kind of pushed towards the people while the mask is being pulled off the other way. Not great. This is nice, a little bit closer up of the pulling the mask off and stuff. And I think some of it is because, again, you're in closer and you can see the arm overlapping the mechanical arm and mechanical arm in the back. The overlapping of the faces here, it's a little bit better. Again, I'm not a big fan of a lot of profile images like this. It's very simple to turn J. Jonah a couple of degrees, turn the cop's face a couple of degrees, even turn Peter a couple of degrees, and it's no longer profile, and it becomes much more dynamic. But I'll take it. I'll take the change in the away from the grid whenever I can. But just in general, profile shots tend to be very flat and not nearly as interesting. Here we go. Again, artistically, not a ton going on here. This is nice. This escape from Doc Ock running from the police after they're like, that's not Spider-Man. That's just some kid. That's crazy. It's a little hard to tell exactly what's going on. He's seems to be climbing this roller coaster track. So I guess he's up in the air because these are buildings down below, but there's no... it almost looks like this would be the ground and these things are floating in the air. I like the figure of Dr. Octopus. What it needs is something else on the ground, a car, a road, the people behind him, something to anchor that ground that tells you that that yellow is the ground, not the sky, and that he's climbing across this thing here. So the figure work is nice, but the background needs a little something to help anchor it. And Peter is sick, and of course he's having fever dreams, which tells him, hey, you can't give up. You got to keep fighting. What's going on here? And the next day he's feeling great. His powers are back, so he comes up with his excuses of what he was trying to do. He was just trying to help, and some people laugh at him, but one of his classmates here, Liz Allen, she decides that's just the thing she was waiting for. And now, while previously she had a crush on Spider-Man, now she's fickle. She moves her crush to Peter. So, Doc Ock is furious. This kid got the best of him. And so here we go. Now, this page, he breaks a bunch of animals out of the zoo to create a distraction. And what I said was, these are really good for the times, especially considering, today's world. If I had a script that said, draw lions and leopard escaping from the zoo, kind of going after people, I could go to the internet, pull up references of real lions, real jaguars in kind of hunting poses, and use real reference to make sure I have all the details right. Obviously, in the 60s, there's no internet. So maybe if you're lucky, maybe you have a National Geographic book that might have a photo somewhat what you're looking for. But, I mean, to do a pretty decent lion and leopard without the kinds of reference material that we have at our fingertips today is pretty impressive. Those are pretty good. And again, you notice like this lion here is so good and much more powerful as it's drawn coming towards you, as opposed to the one that's in profile. Again, just another example of where turning something a few degrees makes it feel bigger, more. It gives depth. It gives shape and form to the figure, not just a flat line image. So there we go again. Page 13. Oh yes. So your usual stuff. Spidey's running into trouble. Now he's got to take over. Now he's got to take over these and stop these animals. And then I like this pose because it was pretty different, right? We've seen the running pose. We've seen kind of the swinging pose. But here's one where he's swinging around this lamp post after he's fallen. So he's grabbed the lamp post and swung around. I like the underhanded grab. It's a lot of attention to detail of how Spidey, somebody would have to grab that post because he's fallen backwards. So he grabs it, so his hands are upside down. The overlapping of the legs, the head being out, being essentially covered by the body, is again a nice attention to detail for what really would be a much more realistic kind of pose. It'd be like a gymnast going around, the uneven bars. Real good and something that we haven't seen a ton of compared to some of the other poses on these pages. So that's nice. Let's see what else. Oh yeah, and I mentioned the angle. So there's a thing that's called a Dutch angle. Very famously, if you've ever seen the 1960s Batman TV show, they used it. So instead of your camera being perfectly at 90 degrees to the ground, you turn it a little bit. So the viewers, it's like the viewers went like this and turned their head as they're looking at the image. That is called a Dutch angle. And they would use it on villains. They would use it during the fight scenes. They would use it to just sort of change your perspective, and it makes you realize you're not just sitting in a chair like this, straight up and down, looking at something. It's turned you as the viewer So again, there's psychology to it. And where is that in play here? Spider-Man has fallen off the building. He's caught this flag post, and the built now it could be perfectly straight. There's no reason not to draw the buildings perfectly straight, and then he's spinning around. We gave it Steve Ditko gave it a little bit of an angle like that, and that makes it more interesting. Same thing here. These are perspective, looking up and down, but or over here, this is another one where he jumps on the lion. The city, again, in the background, the city could be perfectly perpendicular to him. So he could be the vertical element and everything else could be at 90 degrees to him. It's more interesting just by taking it in a couple of degrees, going boop, and turning it to that Dutch angle. Adds more excitement. It adds, again, from the viewer perspective, you are moving or changing your position. So again, a little storytelling psychology there. Let's see, page 15. Same thing here. Great panel. Panel 1 is fantastic. Really nice Dutch angle. That's exactly what I'm talking about, where you see it a lot in that old TV show, the old Batman TV show. Again, imagine this is a television camera or any kind of video camera, or even your phone. You're taking a video. Instead of it being straight up and down, which is perfect, there's no reason not to do it. It's perfectly fine if you had this drawn straight up and down. But you want to add some drama to it. You just turn it like that, and now you have this really neat view that, again, changes how the reader looks at this image. And then you again have great foreshortening of Jonah's arm coming out towards us, towards the ledge, while the rest of him is back behind it. So you really get that sense of he's leaning out that window. So that is a terrific, fantastic panel. We have some foreshortening here and some interesting angle work as well. So we've established that this is a smokestack going up, and again, you could keep drawing it up straight like that, but neat angle to show Dr. Octopus chasing Spidey up the smokestack. Oh yeah, and then this one here, same thing. I'm going to zoom in on this one. I really like this last panel and what he's doing there. So this one is great. This isn't bad. As you're using the motion lines to show him swinging around and through the city. It's fine. This is fantastic though, and what you've got is really good figure work. There's overlapping, so you have this leg that's closer to us is overlapping the leg that's further. The leg that's further is overlapping the building. This chimney top is overlapping the hands that are on it. So again, you're just creating, every time you overlap, you're creating a layer of depth. So from a storytelling standpoint, when that's something you want to do because your paper is flat, so you have to create the illusion of depth. Really nice figure work. And then here's what I like is everything is at an angle. There is almost nothing that is straight up and down, and everything is at opposing angles, meaning Spidey's body is here, is this angle. His legs are at this other angle. This leg is at that angle. Dr. Octopus is at a different angle than Spidey's body. So Spidey's one way, Dr. Octopus is the other way. The arms are coming across, and then the building is different. I mean, the whole thing is just nothing but tilted angles that is so much more interesting than, for a perfect example, is this panel up above where Dr. Octopus is escaping the webs that have wrapped him around the smokestack. So the smokestack is perfectly vertical. This is compared to the bottom of the panel, this is a 90-degree angle. He is flat against it, and profile, not his face, but his body is profile, which is super flat. This is just from a drawing standpoint. Now, I get it. It makes sense with the story of what's happening, but it is honestly a very flat, kind of boring drawing. This has nothing but action, movement, and energy from Spidey, from Doc Ock, from the arms, and even in its own way, the background city elements. So this is a fantastic, nearly perfect panel. All right, let's zoom back out. Um, okay, some decent stuff here. Just again, things that we've seen so far. Moving through the city, trying to escape. He uses his webs in an interesting way to catapult himself back at Doctor Octopus. Again, we have a great opportunity for a horizontal panel to really emphasize that he's launching himself. So again, just real quick, let's go back and see what I'm talking about. Here's a horizontal panel where Spidey's powers have faded. So he has the strength of honestly, a pretty in shape teenager, but he's just a normal, at this point, he's feeling like a normal human being. So, okay, that's all right. There's not a ton of motion in this panel because it's a normal guy in a costume fighting a guy with metal arms, but neither of them are super physical specimens at this point in the story. And their body language kind of reflects that. It's good. It's not amazing. It's not superhuman. But here, his powers are fully back, and look at this. So he launches his whole body into this punch. Dr. Octopus is bent, and look at this leg. Like he's limboing. Like he's been hit so hard, he is inches above the ground, and that head is cocked back as far as it can be. The only thing keeping him from completely falling over are his arms catching him, which is a nice little detail, right? So this is the difference. And again, it's a subtle storytelling. Both are horizontal panels. Both have Spider-Man punching Doc Ock. But this is what a super-powered person can do compared to the other one, which is what a normal person could do. So we've got that. And then they continue to fight, and eventually they story-wise, they crash into what's supposed to be like this sculptor's studio, which I don't know what kind of sculptor you think is there, but this stuff is crazy. There's like a giant head and this like Roman gladiator, and I guess what's supposed to be this huge angel with wings, and then they start a fire. Like the stuff that's in this sculptor's studio is crazy. Like there's this giant, this is that giant sculpture. Here's that giant head. It looks like some sort of giant Greek head. I think it's got to be like 10, 12 feet high. Like, who sculpts something like that? It's crazy. Another giant figure here. It's wild. Here's another giant head. Like, again, I don't know who the sculptor is, but crazy stuff. And then we've got Spidey escaping the fire as only Spidey can by using webbing that we now find out apparently is fireproof. That's good to know. What a convenient thing there. And he makes little stepping pads for himself and a fireproof shield and then jumps out because Spidey's webbing can do anything Spidey needs it to do when he needs it to do it. So, yeah, there we go. And then he escapes, goes in and changes and shows up as Peter. So he makes his appearance as Peter, and the cops manage to catch Dr. Octopus, and everything is good. And there's the end of your story. So that is the Amazing Spider-Man number 12, featuring Dr. Octopus and an almost unmasking of Spider-Man. In fact, I would imagine this kind of plays into to Peter's benefit story-wise in the long run, because now people have seen him in a Spider-Man costume not having Spider-Man's powers, and so nobody would ever believe that Peter Parker is also Spider-Man, right? So there we go. So interesting story stuff. The hero overcomes the challenges, overcomes the returning villain, and so pretty nice story, pretty interesting stuff. Some good storytelling, some panels that kind of missed, but overall, fun and stuff we can definitely learn from even today. As artists who are creating ourselves, there's definitely stuff that we can learn from a comic like this. So I hope you enjoyed it. Next week will be actually a new villain. So we'll have an introduction of another new villain. That'll be super fun. And then, as always, please, if you have the opportunity, like the video. Think about subscribing to the channel. As I mentioned, these videos do come out every Monday at 8 a.m. And I do read the comments. There is one gentleman who continues to comment on the videos. I appreciate you. Thank you very much. I'm very excited, and I'm actually hoping to try to contact and reach out and maybe have him on a stream so we could talk about his blog and his research into Spidey and Steve Ditko as an artist. So I think that would be a lot of fun and a nice addition to the channel here. So we'll see. But leave a comment. Let me know what you think, and any other things that you would like to see. If you have any other comments or thoughts about other superheroes, Spider-Man stuff, etc., let me know. I love to hear from you. Thank you for all your support, and we'll talk to you next week when it's time for more art retrospective videos of The Amazing Spider-Man. Thanks so much.